heard a line tonight. Man, I loved it. It said, spirituality is our natural state. And I find that such a beautiful concept. Get caught up in this world with all the complicated ways in which we're practice spirituality, practice religion, blah, blah, blah. And it can get messy. It can get divisive. Spirituality should definitely help us encapsulate the understanding of connection, not division. And so another line that went along with this was that we don't practice these spiritual principles to get more spiritual, to be more spiritual. We practice the spiritual principles to reduce, relieve the aspects of ourself that dull or disconnect us from that natural state. I paraphrased, but that's the essence, that there's universal spiritual principles that we can practice in our life, and if we do that, is what it does is that it negates the various various ways in which we identify, the various ways in which we categorize and classify, and the ways in which we make preferences, all the ways in which we do things to separate ourselves and cultivate this personality that we think we are. And it is what it does, gets us further and further disconnected from ourselves and from everyone around us, from the world. There's a whole world full of people doing the same thing. Because spirituality is our natural state. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. But if we keep piling on all the things of a human doing, of a thinking, conscious mind creating egoic self, these things just further divide and dissect us. When instead, just understanding how, as we learn to apply various principles, call them spiritual principles if you want, but really we're just practicing principles that keep our ego in check, that keep our obsessive mind in check, that keep our mental insanities in check. And this is universal. You don't have to put a name on it. You don't have to put a thing on it. Your mind wants to put a thing on it, but you don't have to. And I mean, think about it. Well, you know what? No, I'm not even going to give examples. You know, it's up to each person to understand that concept in and of themselves. That if spirituality is our natural state, is our innate state of being, then this journey that we're on, this process, these, I don't know, then which we don't have to spend our life trying to find the next new concept or the newest thing to add on to me to help me find myself. You know, like that's the insanity part, that we keep looking for ways in which to find ourselves, but as we add these things on, we further dull and block our actual self. I heard it said that the process of enlightenment is not about in the addition, but in the subtraction. And it's funny how you hear this pattern across multiple disciplines. And simply what it means is that the conclusion I come to, at least, is that the common denominator is that we don't need to add on to ourselves. We need to remove ourselves. And we get stripped down to this deeper, more innate aspect of ourselves. And that's that universal connection between everything. So even once you strip away concepts, the understanding that everything is all part of one universal whole, one I want to say organic entity, but I mean, even non-organic stuff is a part of that organic entity. So I'm speaking more broadly than just the compounding organic. I'm speaking in the fact that we're a part of this fluid, ever-changing existence, matrix, makeup, and some folks put labels on it like God. Some folks put labels on it from like a chemistry perspective. You hear people that are into stars talk about we are all stardust. The same nitrogen, helium, oxygen, carbon that's in this over here is also in this over here, and everything just gets broken down and reabsorbed. The cycle continues. So like, then you get into the actual spiritual folks that just understand that we're this indwelling Atman, we're this Purusha, we're this animating life force that connects everything. And it all speaks to the higher truth that we practice principles that allow our small self, our egoic self to be reduced, so we can allow that which is within us to shine, to better come out, to better connect. So for example, public speaking. So one would say it's like any time before I go start speaking in a group or whatnot, I get nervous, I get anxious, and so on one hand, we could say, oh, you need to go take speech classes, you need to go learn techniques to learn how to speak better in public. And on some levels, obviously learning better ways in which to speak is true. But even when you go to those classes, there's some things that they tell you as far as pause, take a breath, make eye contact with people. I guess it's easy for me to get sidetracked. Those are all ways in which we still further connect. But the other thing that we can do is find out what blockage is there that gets me anxious, that creates that anxiety when it comes to talking. It's not that I'm a person that has difficulty public speaking. How many of us can relate to that? That's not you. You do not have difficulty public speaking. There's an aspect or a character trait that's been adopted by your psyche that doesn't feel comfortable sharing yourself with others. That hits a little differently than like, oh, I'm somebody that just doesn't like public speaking. There's an aspect of you that is fearful of vulnerability. We can get down to a removal point and we can find out what principle's not being applied in that situation that's clouding your ability, my ability, to share openly with people. I love it when there's folks that can just share openly with people. And I see it and I notice, and I'm like, they're just sharing whatever, they don't care. And sometimes they say something like, oh, I wouldn't say that. What in me cringes when I hear somebody say something that I wouldn't share? Why wouldn't I share it? There's roots to this stuff that once relieved, further allows that inner light to be expressed, to be shared. And so yet again, it's not in the adding, it's in the removal. It's finding ways to remove these things that are keeping me blocked. And what's funny is as these things are removed, energy starts flowing. You're all of a sudden, you don't have the burden of this thing that you've been trying to hold on to, and I'm able to walk freely, to talk freely. Well, oh my God, all of a sudden I have so much more energy. So a lot of the reason why most of us are fatigued is because we are holding on to so much psychically. And by psychically, I'm speaking mentally, emotionally, physically, all the ways. We're holding on to so much that it's draining us. And we've added so much onto ourselves. It's like the kid in Christmas Carol, A Christmas Story, that has so many clothes on they can't even move. It's a little brother where he's just like, wait for me. And he's, his arms are out and he's got 35 layers on. That's what we're doing on a mental, emotional, spiritual level. We have so many layers on that we're not able to move. We're not able to interact. And so, it doesn't need to be one more layer added on. You need to take the layers off. In recovery, we talk about peeling the onion, stripping the layers off of all this stuff keeping us blocked. And it's a deeply powerful, and it is a deeply spiritual approach to healing. It's not in the adding, it's in the removing. And I love when I hear that line, that, man, spirituality is our natural state. We are naturally spiritual beings. We are naturally connected organisms. And due to our lifestyle, due to our habits, we have cultivated ways to separate ourselves, to keep ourselves cut off from ourselves and from each other. Either some of it's our fault, some of it's not. It's not all. This isn't like a blame thing. Just sometimes we've had traumas or various experiences. Traumas is also utilized in a big T, little t word, where we have micro traumas all throughout the day, and we have major traumas. Horrible things happen. Either way, it all adds to the layers. So this process of getting back to our natural self is where the real, it's just where the stuff is. It's where the good stuff is. I guess I could go on and on. I should probably stop, but either way, spirituality is our natural state, and this understanding that we practice principles, practice these things not in order to be spiritual, not in order to be any particular way. We practice these principles so that we can diminish the things about us that are keeping us blocked from sharing ourselves fully. I feel like there's a way to say that less complicated, but it's a work in progress. Just practicing, just sharing what I'm thinking without overanalyzing. Practicing these principles. So, I don't know. It's good stuff. Real good.